Well, go on, you multifamily enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Real Estate Experiment Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of real estate, investing, innovation, and personal growth. I'm your host, Shelon Hutchison. And look, if you've been connected with me for a while, you know me as Hutch the Marine Investor. And today we have an extraordinary guest for you. Bo Barron is the CEO of Barron Commercial Group and a third generation leader in the commercial real estate industry. With a military background as a former Marine and a proven track record of increasing companies' revenue by 397%, Bo is a trusted guide of commercial real estate. I want to welcome you to this episode.
Thanks, Hutch. Thanks for having me. It's a great honor to be on here, and I always like speaking to another devil dog.
Yeah, right. Bo, before we dive into this podcast episode, man, do you have a favorite real estate quote or mantra that drives you?
That is a really good question. I think my favorite quote, which can be applied to anything, it's you never rise to the occasion. You only fall to the level of your preparation.
Tell me more about that.
I mean,
It's
whether you're in the military, whether you're either going to war or you're training for war, that's essentially the only two things we did when we were in.
Yeah.
Or whether in your any type of business, I think too much of us rely on our just sort of natural abilities or skills or our ability to, the gift of gab or anything like that, our charisma. And we think when everything's on the line, we're going to hit it out of the park. And so we rely too much on our natural abilities as opposed to preparing for that situation. That quote always just sticks in the back of my mind. I need to put the work in so that when everything's on the line, it's my preparation that comes through and not me hoping that my natural ability will just allow me to hit it out of the park.
No, man, I like that. That is an amazing quote. All right. Do you mind telling the audience a little bit more about yourself and your current focus?
Sure. I am the third generation of our company. My grandfather started in the 50s it was a home building company. My dad transitioned it into commercial development. And then when I was a kid, he purposed to get out of debt. And so he transitioned from development to brokerage.
Okay.
And then, so I grew up with a daddy who was a commercial real estate broker. And my mom owned a Century 21 office. So she was selling houses and real estate was just in the blood. I saw their lifestyle, but I didn't want anything to do with it. When I just about failed out of college, I thought, man, I need somebody to stick a really large boot up my rear end and straighten me out. And the Marine Corps looked like they had the biggest boot. So I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And pretty quickly, while I was in boot camp, I realized, man, family's way more important than I realized. And the family business really started to look good to me. But I just committed for 5 years, 5-year active duty contract. So I got to fulfill that before I came back. But started working in the family business in 2004, which is about 20 years ago now. What the business looks like now is we've got a commercial real estate brokerage company. So I've got a couple producers that work with me. We've got some property management staff. And we've just recently started an investment fund called Hearthstone Capital. And what we do there is we raise funds like a blind pool syndication, but we're a fund of funds. So we don't actually operate the properties. We look for great sponsors where our investment in their deals can supercharge their deals, help them with their capital stack, and invest in commercial real estate deals all over the country.
I think it's going to be an interesting conversation because there's so many similarities in our trajectory that I'm almost going to be selfish during this podcast episode, trying to learn a lot more from you for myself. So let's talk about your transition from Marine Corps to leading a commercial real estate firm is absolutely a fascinating thing, which, as I mentioned, aligned with my trajectory as well. So how did your military or Marine Corps background shape your approach to leadership and decision-making in the real estate industry?
It shaped it a lot. When I went into the Marine Corps, I was the kid in high school and college who could learn very quickly. I've got a great memory just naturally, nothing I can really take credit for, just is what it is. And because of that, I didn't have to study much. I was a very lazy student, which is why I left college before I failed out of it, but I was doing very poorly.
Right.
And when I enlisted in the Marine Corps, it was the first time I was in an environment where I was required. Let me say that a different way. Excellence was required.
Hmm.
My entire life, I'd always done the minimum amount of effort to get by, to keep my daddy happy with me, to make sure I was meeting expectations. I would do the minimum amount, and I would spend a lot of time and effort figuring out what that minimum amount was. Once you're in, they require excellence. And I got to see for the first time when I gave maximum effort what happened. And I fell in love with that. And so the other thing about the Marine Corps that I love that suits me is there's an SOP for everything.
That's
There's an SOP for how we tie our shoes, right? I'm
right.
still a leftover right guy. It's the right way to do it. I
Oh
still
man.
fold
Yeah, I like that.
my shirts the way they taught us to. There's a right way to do it. And the reason behind that is once you nail down, quote unquote, the right way to do it,
The
you don't have to
basics. Yeah.
spend any mental bandwidth ever again figuring that stuff out. You just execute.
Hmm.
And so when I look at our company here, and look, I worked under my dad for a lot of years before we transitioned into me leading the company and then eventually me buying him out. But he gave me a lot of latitude to lead in some places. And what I would just naturally do was I would systematize things just like we did in the Marine Corps. And we'd create an SOP for every process. And if we weren't getting the results that we wanted, we would tweak the system until we started to dial it in. And so when you run a business that way, it allows everybody to execute something that we know works,
Hmm.
and we can free up our mental bandwidth to engage with the people we're talking to. Or in our business, we're prospecting, we're trying to find and win new business, we're trying to create relationships and all those things. If all the other systems are systematized, we don't have to think about those things. We just have to execute. It frees us up to be in the moment and be our best selves when we're meeting with people and talking to people and doing the things that really move the needle in our business.
Hmm.
And that was, for me, that was directly from the Marine Corps. Like I wasn't that way before.
Yeah.
And when I came out, that's the way it just made sense for me to do business. And so I'd say probably those main things, just a commitment to excellence and just falling in love with the results that happen when you give maximum effort, and then systematizing everything, you know?
That is pretty cool. Now, so let's talk about the strategic growth at Barron Commercial Group. You've achieved remarkable growth at Barron Commercial Group, increasing the revenue by 397%. What strategic initiative and leadership practices contributed to the success, and how do you maintain such momentum in a competitive market?
I think the biggest impact of that growth was I got coaching. I got a
Okay.
coach. And I think for any leader in any capacity to have a coach is a huge deal. And what a coach allowed me to do was be honest with somebody about my struggles and about what's
Mhm.
going well. I got an independent set of eyeballs on my business, somebody who could speak into that and say, look, I hear what you're saying, but this is what I'm seeing, and they're not aligned. And you need to think about
Mm,
this, and somebody to hold me accountable. So I'd set goals, and then I had to answer to somebody. And a lot of times when you're in a leadership position, you may be on an island. And if you don't go seek that kind of coach, then you don't really have anybody to answer to. And without accountability, it's a lot easier to just fall back to your default methods of operating
yeah.
or get lazy in some areas. And so that was a really big deal to me. And then otherwise, I just tried to get as educated as I could, as quickly as I could. And my dad was a big impetus to this. When I started, I got out of the Marine Corps November 1st, 2004, and I started working with my dad November 2nd,
There
2004,
we go.
the very next day. And the very next week, he put me in a CCIM education course. So if you hadn't heard of CCIM, it's a commercial real estate designation, and they teach you how to underwrite deals, investment analysis, market analysis, user decision analysis, those kind of things. And you go through a series of 4 core courses that are all a week long. And I get to teach one of those courses now. But he put me in that class the very next day. And so, right from the beginning of my career, I understood how important education was going to be
Mhm.
to the success I could have. And when I grew up with parents that were in the real estate business, but they didn't bring work home. I've got 5 siblings. When the 8 of us were having dinner at night,
Right.
they weren't talking about business. They were talking about us. Like, how was your day at school? They were concerned with us. They didn't spend a lot of time. I didn't overhear a lot of work conversations and stuff. So I had to learn that stuff, and just being real proactive about getting the education that you need so that you can be more valuable to your potential clients. That just really spurred on the success. And then actually left the business for a little bit. And so for a period of about 6 years, I went and worked at a national commercial real estate company called SVN, and I was working on the corporate
Yeah.
side. And then after that, I got into food safety technology, just a total 180. I had a
It is.
buddy who started a company, and I went to work with him and tried to help him get that off the ground for a couple of years. And then the coach that I hired, I went and became his COO. It was a guy named Rod Santamassimo with the Massimo Group. I was his COO for about 3 years. And then after that, I came back to the family business. And so having those different experiences in different industries just helped me bring back a broader view of what leadership looks like. The good things I'd learned, the bad things I'd seen, all helped shape who I am as a leader. And so I think all of those kind of contribute to the success that we've had. But the main thing is, frankly, I feel like we've got God's favor. I can't take credit for a lot of this. I'm just trying to be faithful to deploy the skills and the abilities that the Lord's given me as well as I can.
Are you saying God favors Marines?
I think he does.
Thank you. All right. I'm a part
Hmm.
of this mastermind, and we do have an accountability person. And even though this person benefits nothing from the things that I do on a weekly or monthly basis, the fact that I have to report to somebody else about the things that I say that I am committed to, that it's definitely has been a catalyst. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, key thing to note is that the way H Squared Capital started off, myself and Dr. Jones started off accountability partner before we actually formalize our business venture as H Squared Capital. The value of accountability is way more important than a lot of us think it is, especially when you're focused on growth, because we can get some knowledge and we can just stagnate and grow a little bit. But accountability partner or coach is definitely going to be the catalyst that a lot of us needs. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah. We talk about the role of strategic partner in commercial real estate. You emphasize the importance of being a strategic partner rather than just focusing on transaction. Can you elaborate on how this approach benefits your clients and contribute to their long-term success?
Sure. If you start with the premise that you can't serve everybody,
Hmm.
and we can't, like our company here does not have the capacity to work with everybody in our market. We can't do it. And so if you start from that place, then the question is, how do I attract the right people? The people that should be my clients, the people I want to work with. And how do we do that here? And the way we do it is we purpose to solve their internal conflicts. And so let me explain what I mean when I say internal conflicts. What's your favorite movie?
I think it would be rules of engagement.
Rules of engagement. Okay, I'm not familiar with that, so that doesn't help me. But let me give you an example. Just about everybody's seen Star Wars, right?
Right.
Not my favorite movie, but this is a great example of what I'm talking about. Luke Skywalker's external conflict in that movie is the Death Star, right? His conflict with Darth Vader and the Death Star, that's the external conflict. That's what he has to solve in that movie. But his internal conflict is with himself. And it is, does he have what it takes?
Okay.
Now, my favorite thing about the fact that I became a Marine is I never have to wonder again if I have what it takes.
My man.
And you know what I'm talking about, right? Like when everything's on the line, whether I'm right or not about this, I'm going to step into that conversation thinking, I've never been, I've already been more tired than I'm going to be right now. I've already been more fatigued than I've been right now. I've been colder. I've been wetter. I've been more miserable than this situation right now. And I know I've got what it takes to handle this. Like a Marine gets to show up to a situation with that kind of confidence because of
Mhm.
what we've been through in the past. Like we know we have what it takes. But that is an internal conflict. And so all of our clients that we're trying to serve, they have internal conflicts, but they don't talk about them. So you have to go figure out what that stuff is. And you do that by asking great questions. I'm not competing for their business on the basis of being able to sell their property at a higher price. I'm going to try to do that. But what I really want to know is, what are they trying to accomplish? Where do they want to be 3 years from now? What are their issues? What are the things that keep them up at night? What are the real internal problems that they're trying to solve? And if I can learn that stuff and then show them how I can fix those things or help them have the success that they want,
Mm-hmm.
now I become a strategic partner. And so it's not about the single transaction. I'll give you a great example of this. We had a woman one time, she had just lost her husband. And over the previous 30 years, they had bought a single family house, a rental house, every year for 30 years. So they had a portfolio of single family rentals, about 30, a couple of duplexes, mainly single family rentals. They had used one residential realtor to buy all those houses for 30 years. And when it came to sell them, we got an opportunity to win her business. So I'm competing with the guy that she's had a relationship for 30 years,
Yeah.
who was telling her, hey, he can sell these for more. He's familiar with these properties. When we met with her, I asked her, why do you want to sell these in the first place? Have they not served you well? And she said, look, here's my big problem. I don't know how much money I'm going to have from month to month, because I got to replace a roof over here, and that hot water heater is going to go out. And my income is variable. And because it's
Mm.
variable, I don't feel like I have the freedom to make decisions based on how much money I'm going to have 6 months from now. And what I really want to do is I want to be able to travel and spend time with my grandbabies. They're all over the country. And I don't feel like I have the freedom because I don't know how much money I'm going to have. And so what we showed her how to do is, look, we can sell this portfolio. We can 1031 into something that's more like mailbox money, some single tenant net lease deal, or buy Walgreens or some dollar stores or whatever. And you'll know, not only does your management headache go way down, but you're going to know from month to month how much money you're going to have.
Yeah.
And the analysis was never how much can you sell the portfolio for? It was always what can you achieve
Mm-hmm.
once you do sell it and redeploy that capital. And by understanding her internal conflict, I wasn't selling her property. I was giving her the freedom to spend time with her grandbabies. And we were able to win that business. We competed on an internal conflict level with her, while my competition was competing with me on an external conflict. And people make buying decisions based on solving their internal conflicts. If you approach your business that way, you can step into that role as a strategic partner where they're the hero of their story and I'm just a guide helping them achieve that. And so that's in a nutshell how we try to become a strategic partner with our clients. That builds fabulous relationships, leads to repeat business, and there's a tremendous amount of satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
in understanding what people are really trying to accomplish and then helping them do that, rather than just selling a building, collecting a fee, going about my business.
That is a unique approach that I don't think a lot of agents are taking, right? Because if you really think about it, a lot of agents, they are in real estate, but they're not really in real estate investor. It's more of a transactional. How much commission can I make on a monthly, yearly basis that to support my lifestyle? Not so much how many people can I help? Can I help solve their problem? I'm having a similar thought process too, right? And it's going to lead me into the next question about you co-founded Hearthstone Capital. With Hearthstone Capital, you take on a co-GP position, allow an investor to benefit from the GP promote. What led you to co-found this investment fund, and how does it complement your work at BCG?
So that's a really good question. I was in a place at the end of last year, end of 2023, where the brokerage business was running well. Our property management business was running pretty well. And I was trying to figure out what's the next thing. And I wanted to do something that was fun and exciting and big and
Mm-hmm.
lucrative. But at the same time, I wanted to continue to protect the bandwidth for my family. I'm not the guy who works 70 hours a week. I work closer to 40 hours a week. I'm home for dinner. I travel some when I'm teaching these courses, but beyond that, I do not work long hours. Family is way more important to me than the business is. And so but a lot of times when you do something big, it comes with a lot of work. And so I was going through this exercise, and I've got a coach, and the coach said, look, why don't you talk to some people about how you're thinking about the future? And so what I did was I ended up calling 7 people that I had a tremendous amount of trust with and I really liked. And I just called him up and I was like, hey, look, I'm dreaming about the future. What could we create that's big, exciting, a little different, maybe something we're not seeing out there, but that also is not creating a new full time job for us at the same time.
Right.
And so, out of 7 of those conversations, one of the guys I talked to was in the exact same place, thinking exactly the same thing about the future, or it was just in that place where he was dreaming about the future. When we started to have this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
Hearthstone Capital is what grew out of that conversation.
Kind of like a
And so I've got a
mastermind.
partner. Yeah, I've got a partner in Phoenix. He and I co-founded this fund. And what we do is we take investors' equity and we invest in other people's deals. And most of the time, we can negotiate a co-GP position. We might be 10% of the co-GP or 10% of the GP. And the promote that we get on that side flows back into the fund. And so our investors do a little bit better than if they were just an LP in that deal. And beyond that, we both care about having a positive impact in the world. And so we invest in deals that benefit the people that the real estate serves. An example of that is the first deal we did was a 231 unit apartment complex in Dallas, Texas.
Nice.
And our partners that we invested with are out of Louisville, Kentucky, buddies of mine. And what they do is they lease to legal refugees. So these are people that have legal permanent status, that have fled a bad situation, have come to the United States through legal channels. They've been vetted by the FBI, but 85% of them can't get housing because landlords won't rent to them because they don't have a social security number yet and they don't have a work history. So they just don't qualify. And so what my buddies do is they lease to legal refugees. They work directly with the resettlement agencies and just make it really easy to place these families. They're great tenants. They're educated. They're highly upwardly mobile. They start businesses and they generally stay in these apartment communities for about 4 years. Vacancies like less than 4%, delinquencies less than 2%, turnover on an annual basis is between 20 and 22%. And all of that, I mean, if you think about a normal multifamily community,
Yeah, that's
you're
good.
losing half your people every year. They're paying their cell phone bill before they pay their rent. That's not the case with these legal refugees. They're so excited about having a clean, nice, safe place to live
Mm-hmm.
that it all drops to the bottom line. And then my buddies, what they do is they get churches in the area and nonprofits to come and serve these people. And so we're not just making an investment to make some money, like we're having a real social and internal impact for the people who live in these communities. And that's what we're trying to do with our fund. We're trying to do something that creates a tremendous amount of wealth, no question. But we want to have a real impact on the people that these communities serve or these investments, the people that the real estate serves. And so that's the heart behind Hearthstone and why we created it. We've done Fund 1 earlier in the year. A couple of weeks, we're about to launch Fund 2. And yeah, it's a blast.
Now, I like that. And the impact that you're creating aligns with the name of your company. So that is pretty cool. An investor, a homeowner or just a real estate owner that is looking to take more of a passive role towards investment with your commitment to actually address their internal conflict, you can get to the place where you can understand, is this person better suited as a passive investor or should they continue actively managing their real estate? So I think it definitely gives you more opportunity to be a bigger and better strategic partner for real estate owners. So I
That's
like
right.
that.
Yep.
Okay. Do you think most agents are having these kind of deep conversation with their clients?
No,
What do you think that is?
I think some of it's just a lack of understanding that concept. The idea of internal conflict that I was mentioning before, that comes from
Right.
a book called Story Brand. A guy
Yeah, I
named
read that
Donald
one.
Miller.
Donald Miller. Yep.
Donald Miller wrote it, and I got to be trained by him in Nashville a number of years ago. And we really dove into that model of marketing and stuff. And it's always just stuck with me. And I didn't understand that concept before I read that book and learned it from him. So I think a lot of it's just ignorance to the fact that it's a reality. And so they
Right.
do what everybody else around them does, which is, hey, I'll work for less. I can sell your house for more. Please hire me. Please hire me. I work 80 hours a week, and they're making promises that they can't. If you really take the time to understand and vet your clients, because look, I, I, I can't serve everybody and they can't hire everybody. And so I want to make sure that we're a great fit so we both have a great experience working with each other. And I think what normal looks like is you got a little bit of that stink of desperation. Please hire me. I need this deal. And it doesn't serve anybody well.
I'm actually looking forward to get my real estate license so I can help some folks with their internal problems as well, as far as
That's right.
homeowners goes. To be respectful of your time, I want to talk about navigating complex real estate market. In today's complex and ever-changing real estate landscape, what are some of the biggest challenges you face in identifying quality deals and operators, and how to overcome these challenges? And this can be both on the broker side and also on the investment side.
Yeah. So I believe firmly that there are great opportunities in every market during any part of the market cycle. And so like today, it's a tougher environment than it was 18 months ago. Interest rates have gone up a lot. Transactional velocity has slowed. Values have been decreased. It's just not as easy to find great deals. However, they're still out there. And I think the main thing about understanding these complexities is that at the bottom line of everything, I'll just ask you this question. What causes demand for any type of real estate space?
Population.
Yeah, people, right?
People.
It's population growth. So if you can analyze a market and understand the job environment, if there's job growth,
Mm-hmm.
there is going to be demand for more space. And if you think about it at a macro level, like just consider the United States. Do you know how much our population grows every year? It's between a Nashville size growth and a Denver size growth. So between 2 and 3 million people every year, population growth in the United States. Now, most of that's from immigration, but who cares? Like more people, more demand for
Yeah.
space. We need another Nashville or Denver worth of space every year in the United States. So that's the macro level. Once you boil it down, because all deals are hyper local, you have to understand the market you're looking at. So before we ever take a look and really analyze a property, we analyze the market first because that property lives in the context of that market. And so that could be a great deal in a crappy market. It's really a crappy deal.
Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time analyzing the jobs environment and trying to anticipate job growth, because when we can do that, we can quantify the future demand. We can quantify that. And so if I know there's going to be 1,000 new jobs because
Right.
some new manufacturing plant's coming in, I can use, and we teach this in that 102 market analysis course that I teach through the CCIM Institute. But if it's a basic job, it's got a multiplier on it. So that 1,000 jobs might end up being 5,000 new jobs.
Yeah.
They all have families. So 5,000 new jobs might equate to 15,000 people. And if a third of those people are renters, then there's 5,000 people renting. And if there's 2.5 people per household, then you divide 5,000 by 2.5, and whatever that number is, let's just say it's 1,700. You've got demand for 1,700 more apartments or rental units. And you can look at a job announcement and quantify future demand and then start to make investment decisions based on that. And so I think the biggest mistake that people tend to make is they look at a property, analyze the heck out of it, and make a decision without considering the market itself.
Got you.
It's a huge mistake. There's not one piece of property on the planet that doesn't live in the context of the market that it's in. And if it's not a diverse economy and one major employer leaves, then your investment just got shot in the foot.
Real bad.
Real bad. We spend a lot of time analyzing the markets,
Okay.
and then we analyze the property.
Yeah, and that goes both for on the brokerage side and on the investment side, because they go hand in hand, right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about two more questions. I want to talk about your education background as far as being a senior instructor for the CCIM Institute. And then we're going to go into more of the family business, family lifestyle question. let's talk about educating the next generation of real estate professionals. As a senior instructor at the CCIM Institute and a board member of the CCIM Foundation, you're deeply involved with educating others, which, to your point, education is important. What motivates you to contribute to a broader commercial real estate community, and how do you see the role of educating in shaping the future of the industry?
I had such a great benefit from going through the CCIM education
Right,
that I I just naturally want to pass that on, pay it forward, so to speak.
right,
In addition to that, I am a teacher at heart. Like I never have more fun than when I'm teaching something. So I get to teach these real estate courses. I teach a Sunday school class. I don't really care what I'm teaching. I just love to teach. And so if I looked at my skill set and the benefit and the gratitude that I had from what I'd had learned going through that education, it was just a natural step for me to step in there. And I just absolutely love it. I love when I see the light bulb go on for people, you know, and it's just some of the most satisfying work that I do. It's not the most lucrative, but that's not always the main thing. So I love doing that. I got to begin that journey in 2019. So I've done it for about 5 years now.
okay. No, I think it's spot on. Just educating
Yep.
and shaping the future of the industry. So you're coming out to Hawaii in October to
Mhm.
teach this class. Do you mind dropping me or having Alice drop me the dates and time for
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hope I can get some more information. That's outstanding, man. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that class. So your parents set a real good example for you, right? You mentioned that a family of eight, right?
Mhm.
Sitting at the dinner table, the focus is on family growth and not so much money or transaction happen today. I want to talk about balancing work, podcasting, and personal life. So you co-host the podcast, Commercially Speaking, with your brother, Timmy, who
Yes.
brings unique entertainment angle to the show. How do you balance your demanding role at BCG and Hearthstone Capital with podcasting and maintaining a healthy personal life?
I'm fanatical about my time,
Okay, tell us more.
is the answer to that. There's really two things. One is there's so much work that needs to be done in what you just described. So I've built a team of people who can do the work. I don't have to do all that stuff. And so we've got great people here who understand exactly the system we're trying to execute. They do it super well, which frees me up. I also have an executive assistant named Alice, you just
Alice.
mentioned,
Yeah.
and she runs my day. I meet with her every morning for about 15 minutes. She takes me through what the day looks like. She schedules, she totally handles my calendar. She handles my email. She didn't write all my emails, but she's always in my email cleaning it out, saying, hey, you need to take a look at this. She handles my travel. She helps with our contracts and paperwork. She schedules my haircuts. She does all this. She probably gives me 10 hours a week back. And like without her, I couldn't do this stuff. And so when we do podcast episodes and like coming on here with you today, like she scheduled all that stuff.
She did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you sent me an email. I was like, hey, I think I'd like to do this. I shot it to her. I was like, set it up. Don't care when it is. Just set it up. And we're here today. That thought process for me was about 30 seconds. And then somebody else was doing all this. And then we're here today. I didn't have to think through. I didn't have to spend a lot of time. So with our podcast, Commercially Speaking, my brother is the who does all the work. So he's my co-host, but he's an actor and a comedian. So he's great at video, he's great at audio, he's great at lighting, he's great at editing. He does all that work. All I have to do is come up with the ideas for the episodes and show up and talk, and he does everything else. There's no other way that would work. I don't know how to do that stuff. I don't want to know how to do all that stuff. And so in each aspect of my life or business or family, like there's people in place. It's the who that gets it done more than how do I get that done. And
Like that.
there's a great book by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy called Who
Yeah.
Not How.
Yeah. It's
And
a
that's
great book.
exactly what I've tried to implement in our businesses. And what that allows me to do is be with my family. It
Mhm.
allows me to be with the people I care about the most, and I can be intentional and purposeful in creating experiences and lasting memories with them so that we have great relationships that last a lifetime. That's way more important than spending another 2 hours at the office every day or whatever. And we've just built a team here that executes that frees me up to spend my time the way I want to.
Yeah. So I think, especially, I've been in the Marine Corps for over 25 years. And when I learned the concept of who, not how, so many things change, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
when you think about it, we have a team and everyone have their own, we call them MOS, military
Hmm.
occupational skill, and they are the experts in what they do. And as the leader, a lot of time we are focusing up and out, while those subject matter expert can focus on the down and in. And as long as we have the right people in the right places, we have a who that we can put a thumb on that knows how to do the thing, we can entrust that a thing happen and also bring them together once a week for those accountability moments. We have this going on. Are we meeting these timelines, right? Who's handling this rock, right? Or we assigning new rocks to ensure that we're continuously moving the mission forward towards the commander's intent. Taking that approach towards business has definitely been a catalyst for Dr. Jones and I. So I appreciate you. You reassured me that we're doing the right things.
It sounds like you're doing the right things for
Yeah.
sure. Yep.
Appreciate you, man. All right. So we're going to go into the focus round. This real short focus round to be respectful of your time as we wrap up this podcast. So, Bo, what do you do for fun?
I've mentioned it a couple of times, but
Right.
our fun is really around family time.
No.
So I'll give you a
Okay.
couple of examples. I've got three kids. They're 21, 18, and 15. So two boys, and
Yeah.
my daughter's the youngest. Every year, I take them on a son, father daughter trip. So they plan it, I pay for it, and we go do it. So a couple of
Nice.
weeks ago, I took my daughter to Lollapalooza in Chicago, a big music festival, which frankly, I don't ever have to do again. But she loves the Cubs. She was a softball player for a lot of years. She's a basketball player. So we went to a Cubs Cardinals game at Wrigley Field. And so I want to be intentional about carving out time for each one of my kids to create a significant memory on an annual basis. And on a more tactical level, like I mentioned, she's a basketball player. So about 3 times a week, she asks me to take her to the gym after dinner. I rebound for her. She runs all these drills. Then we play one on one. And it's just that quality time, spending time with my kids on their terms, doing what they want to do, so we can create the kind of relationship that makes me a safe place and an advocate and an advisor and a strategic partner for them for the rest of their lives. My wife and I try to do that same kind of stuff. So that's fun for me. Just
That
pouring into
sounds
my
like fun.
kids. They're fun. They're cool. I just love spending time with them. Um, so that's what I do for fun.
That was a good reminder as well, too. So, what is one opportunity that was a game changer for you?
I think it was understanding freedom, what it is, and also agency. I'm in a program called Strategic Coach, which is where the who, not how came from,
Yeah.
Dan Sullivan.
Solving. Yes.
And he talks about these 4 freedoms. And when I heard this, it really crystallized
Yeah.
these things: freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of
Relational.
relationship, and freedom of purpose.
Yeah.
So, man, talk about opportunities. If you can order your life to where you have those 4 freedoms, then man, you can spend your time and your resources with the relationships that you want to achieve the purpose that you want. Talk about a satisfying, fulfilled life. And so to me, that's really what we're trying to do here. We're trying to order our businesses and grow our businesses in a way so that we have those 4 freedoms and we can utilize that freedom for the good of people and the glory of God. That's what we're about. And then agency, that's the idea that you can make your own choices, right? That's what agency is. And a lot of us think, and I thought this for a long time, that I just have to be older before I could accomplish those things. And the reality is I have the agency to make the decisions to pull those future dreams into the present and go ahead and try to achieve those things now. And when I realized that, that was a huge opportunity for me. What am I waiting for? I run the company. I can make these changes now. I've got the agency to do it. That was a big aha moment for me.
I appreciate you, man. So, what would you say is your most important communication tip?
I was an organizational communication major in
Okay.
college. That's what my degree's in. And so there's really 2 things when it comes to relationships: communication.
Communication.
Relationships have a lot to do with it, but one is feedback loops. The interesting thing about communication is this: For me to communicate an idea to you, I have to have the idea, which you can't hear.
Hmm.
I have to translate that idea into words that I then say. You hear them, you decode my words into what an idea forms in your mind. Now, here's the problem. What a word means to me, growing up in the South and living in Kentucky most of my life, I may choose a word that's the perfect word for me, but that means something a little bit different to you. And so when you're decoding what I'm saying and translating into an idea, it's probably going to be at least a little bit off my intended message. And so to employ a feedback loop is just to get the kind of feedback to confirm that what you heard was in fact what I meant to say. And that idea went from my brain to your brain. So I try to use feedback loops as much as possible to confirm that the directive or the commander's intent or the rules of
Yeah.
engagement or all those things. And that's why when we enlisted, or I'm not sure what your rank was.
I'm still active duty, Master Gunnery Sergeant.
Okay. So we both enlisted.
Yeah.
So when we're going through boot camp, they taught us a new language. Like we learned a new language. I didn't call it a bathroom anymore. I didn't call
Yeah.
it a window anymore. All of a sudden, I'm using words like port and starboard. That's so that we all use the same language to cut down on the misunderstandings that the connotations of words have.
Hmm.
And it's very effective. Everybody in the Marine Corps, we speak the same language. And so it really cuts down on that. It makes our communication very high contact. Just having empathy for people and trying to put yourself in their shoes and trying to understand what they're thinking and feeling. If you don't have empathy, you're just going to be a terrible communicator.
So many gems there. So many. Let me ask you this. Have you ever used the words, do you see what I'm saying?
I don't say it that way.
Okay.
I might just say, do you understand? Which is a terrible way to get feedback. So what are they going to say? Yes, that you haven't confirmed anything. Do you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? Sure. But you have no way of knowing if they do, you know.
I asked that because of your what you talk about is that you see an idea in your head, you can actually see the process actually come into fruition and the end result that you want, right? Now we have to articulate that into words with the goal that person can also imagine the end result that we are actually seeing. This is a phrase that I've learned recently. But feedback loop is definitely an important. We call it a sender versus receiver concept. It's
Mhm.
really important. What is one thing you wish you understood earlier, Bo?
What it takes to lead yourself well.
Okay,
I wish I would have known that a long time ago.
gotcha.
Um, for someone to lead themselves well, it means they attack their day on purpose as opposed to by default. The nicest thing about this system I have with Alice, my executive assistant, and how we attack the day is we have a plan for every day.
Yeah,
I do a weekly plan. I write it out. I send it to her, and she holds me accountable throughout the week. Hey, have we done this yet? I'm attacking the week on purpose as opposed to by default. Now, the day always gets a vote on what happens. I can
that's
get an email in 5 minutes from now that can just destroy my entire day and take me off on a totally different course than the one I had planned. Nothing wrong with that.
mhm.
But if we attack every day on purpose, we're leading ourselves well and we're going to have a lot more success and a lot more impact. Same thing with the relationships that matter most. Am I investing in those relationships on purpose with intent as opposed to just being present and by default, which is why I try to take these trips with my kids.
Yeah,
I want to invest in my relationship with them on purpose. And man, I wish I would have learned that a long time ago.
same
Because
here. I think we all do.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just average when I'm living by default. And I'm not satisfied with average.
definitely not. To what do you attribute your success, Bo?
I'd say two things. One is family legacy. Like in my town of Owensboro, Kentucky, I'm a gene pool lottery winner. Like a lot, I have all kinds of natural advantages in this town because of my last name and because of the integrity that my parents have and my grandparents had and generations. All of that works in my favor. It
Mhm.
benefits me here. And so a lot of the success I've had is due to the fact that, yeah, I work hard. I try to do things on purpose and do things in a way that's going to actually serve people. but everything's easier because of the generations of my family that have worked with integrity and built a good name for my family. Like that benefits me. And I just try not to screw it up.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I mentioned this before, but God's favor. I'm a follower of Jesus, and these businesses that we have and these properties that we own and invest in and stuff, none of that's mine. And my job is to steward it well. And so the second I start to take ownership and like become prideful that I've got this skill set and I'm this big shot and all this stuff, none of that serves me well. So any success that we've had, I think it has a lot to do with our family legacy and God's favor.
And I appreciate you continue the trajectory of that legacy. And it sounds like you're doing an amazing job with your children, and they will continue that down that path as well. So that's amazing, Bo. It's been such a refreshing conversation with you. A lot of podcasts, sometimes we want to demonstrate what we know. And however, sometimes you come across those dudes and gals that all you need to do is just really listen. And I appreciate you bringing such a high value to this podcast episode and provide me this space to just listen to a master at work. Your level of communication has definitely been refreshing for me during this podcast episode. And I'm confident that our listeners took away a lot of value from the way to run a principled and a focus centered business towards serving a greater good, and also ensuring that what we're doing on the external to our household synergize with the quality of living that we want to create with the things that are most important to us, which is our family. I really appreciate you providing this refreshing conversation to us and our listeners. Bo, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so you can go to barroncommercial.com. My last name spelled Barron. So barroncommercial.com. We do have a weekly podcast. We're about 70 plus episodes in. That's called Commercially Speaking. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. And that's where I teach my brother, who's an actor and a comedian, all about commercial real estate.
Nice.
He makes it fun and entertaining. If you watch on Spotify or YouTube, it's all on video. And he does a great job producing all of that. Pretty active on LinkedIn and Twitter. I completely ignore Facebook, but if anybody wants to reach out, that's where to find me.
Okay. I appreciate you, man. And listeners, I want to thank you again for joining us in another episode of the Multifamily Real Estate Experience Podcast. This was a long one. However, it was a impactful episode that I know you will take away a lot of ninja tip from. So, Mr. Bo, I want to thank you again for coming to this podcast. And all you listeners, appreciate you for listening to this episode of the Multifamily Real Estate Experiment Podcast. I'm Hutch the Marine Investor. Out.
All right, man. Thank you so much.